Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade. It's Monday, and for our second one-day playthrough, we're going to go back to 1985 and play one of my favorite games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a game that actually proved that the NES, for as limited as the technology actually was on that console, could take an arcade game at the time and port it into something that I genuinely think is a better version. We're going to play Paperboy. Paperboy, like I said, came out in arcades in 1985. It was created by Atari and Midway Games, even though it says here on the welcome screen that it was created by Mindscape. Midway Games is the one who actually produced it, and it was one of the biggest games at the time when it hit home consoles in 1986. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pause it really quick right here and just kind of explain to you a little bit of how this game works. It's pretty self-explanatory. You are a paperboy, which for people who don't understand what that means, way back in the halcyon days of yore, if you wanted to earn a living as a kid and kind of subvert the child labor laws of the time, you got a paper route, which means you got on your bike, you rode out first thing in the morning, and you delivered newspapers to people in your neighborhood. Well, that's what this game is about. You have to make sure that you get your subscribers their paper on time, with a few extra things thrown in. One is you're able to do considerable amount of property damage with your newspapers, and two, you have to avoid particular obstacles that would keep you from getting your papers delivered to the people who are expecting them. You have a certain number of papers that you have to deliver every day. The houses are lit up in their normal colors, while non-subscribing houses are gray, and you can see by the isometric design that you have to be able to keep in track of which way you are going. You can press up to go faster, you press down to slow down, steering is left and right, it's pretty straightforward, and then to throw papers, you just hit the A button. You don't have a time limit to get through this game. You can beat it potentially in about 15 to 30 minutes, because you have to just be able to get through a full week and not lose all of your subscribers. Once you get through the route, any papers that are not delivered on time or don't make it to their particular mark, you will lose the subscribers. If you manage to get all of your subscribers their papers in a day, you will actually gain subscribers, and you essentially win the game, even though there's not a real win to it. But if you manage to get, by the end of the week, have the entire street be a newspaper subscriber, then you've effectively won the game. But it's not easy. So let's get through this first day, and I'll show you kind of how it works. And I missed that one, and then you only have a finite amount of papers, as I just rolled right past that first one. I missed that one too. So what you're trying to do, and I'm missing all of my newspapers here. What you're trying to do is you're either trying to get it into, like I just did there, into the mailbox, or as close to the door as possible. And now I'm out of newspapers. So I'm going to miss this one, I'm going to miss this one, and I got clipped by the skateboarder and I went down. You only have 3 lives in this game. You can get more. That one worked. So you will get that musical note if you manage to get it right. Now I got more papers refilled. But the thing about this game was, when it came out, being an arcade port, it was interesting because the actual arcade game, you steered the Paperboy with actual handlebars. Now at the end, you get to ride this training course, which can get you bonus points. If you don't make it through, you don't lose a guy, because you already made it to the end of the level. This is just like a bonus thing. And clear the jump, and your buddies are there waiting for you at the end of the line. Now, why in the name of common sense would you have a game about a kid riding a paper route. Well, again, like I said, in the 1980s, kids having paper routes was nothing new. And I lost 4 subscribers already. So now I got to make it to Tuesday, and if I want to get them back, I've got to get the ones that still have subscriptions. So it was taking advantage of what is now considered by many to be a bygone era. Because, again, you don't have kids nowadays really riding bikes in... Ooh, I hit the grate. I keep forgetting that that grate can take you out. But if you get your tire stuck in there, oh, that hurts. I've done that way too many times in my life. So I got that one. Got that one. Now, obviously, some houses are easier to get to than others. And you can see there's a little, like, strip in front of the doors that if you can get to them, that will essentially get you a successful delivery. Don't want to hit the brake dancer. Oh, and the whirlwind sucks. I hate that. Got that one. Clip the tree. And you can throw multiple papers at a target. You just have to keep in mind of how many you have. And you got to make sure you take out the door, or the dog rather. Stay away from death. Yes, you actually have to outrun death in this game. But by modern standards nowadays, a game like this would be pointless. Because again, most kids, as I know, having worked in news media for 15 years, being a paperboy isn't something people do anymore. You know, the people that would deliver the papers at the places I worked for were grown people who just needed work. So the era of the paperboy is long, long, long gone. But 30, 40 years ago, it was still a big thing. You know, I knew a lot of kids who did it, and that's how they paid for their, you know, how they paid for most of their summer stuff. So I lost one house, so I have 5 left. Now, with each successive day, it gets a little bit harder to get through the obstacles. Like, death doesn't show up on a Monday. But he'll show up on a Tuesday. Oh, I missed that one. So I'm going to lose that subscriber. Got that house. Avoided that. I avoided the old woman coming out to hit me with her yardstick. Almost got hit by the dune buggy guys. Got that one. And yeah, you can say this game is fairly repetitive with how it's laid out. I mean, it's nothing... Oh, whiffed on that. Seriously. Hit the kid in the big wheel. Oh! I hit the lawn globe. Or I hit the light post, I should say. You don't want to run into death. And the guys on the motorbikes. So I made it through another training course. And I whiffed. But again, you don't lose a guy if you crash on the training course. But I think I lost at least 2 houses. I did, so I'm down to 3. If you lose all the houses as well, you lose the game. But I've made it to Thursday. I think I've made it through a week in this game only once or twice. And like most 80s games, it's about pattern recognition and understanding how, you know, how to angle shots and whoa, almost got clipped by the car. But you know, it's about learning the timing, getting all that down. But you also got to learn how to stay off the sidewalk enough. Stay away from the bikers. Got that one. Stay away from the tornado. Don't get hit by the skateboarder. I'm doing pretty well here. Don't hit the guy with the jackhammer. Stay away from the old lady with the yardstick. Always reminds me of my grandmother with the old lady with the yardstick. Not that my grandmother was an evil woman by any stretch. Yes, I just hit death with a newspaper. Okay, so I got everybody on the route that I know of, so I should get a subscriber back. And I should be flinging stuff to try and get these tires knocked down. And I made it to the end this time. I think you get an extra guy if you make it over 25,000 points, but I'm not sure. But I remember playing this in the arcade, and playing it with the handlebar controllers was really annoying because you had to steer and throw the papers utilizing the handlebars. Whereas in real life, you would just take it and wing it one-handed. If you had a paper out, you learned to get really good at riding with one hand or no hands. Oh, and I whiffed on that one. Well, I'm already going to be down another... Oh, and I got hit by the RC car, so it's not going to matter. And if you get to the end and you don't make it through the week, the Paperboy inevitably calls it quits. So I got the top score. But like I said, I made it all the way to Thursday, and it's a game I played in, for all of 12 minutes. And understanding the limits of the Nintendo at the time and the technology that was available at the time, I mean, Midway was more interested in trying to make a game that was fun. And to give you an idea, Midway back in the 80s, I mean, this is a company that had been around since the early 1950s making pinball machines and stuff. They made arcade games, and then once the Atari 2600 broke through and became a big thing, then they shifted over to making more video games. I totally forgot about the guy stuck down the manhole. But they also made games like Arch Rivals, which is a great basketball game. They made the Batman movie game from the original 1989 movie. They made the Cruisin' racing games, Cruisin' World, Cruisin' USA. But even going back to the 80s, they made games like Defender and Gorf and Joust and Moon Patrol, which is a game I remember. But most notably, Midway was known for two big games. They made NBA Jam, which is to this day one of the greatest sports games I've ever played. And they're the company behind Mortal Kombat. They made the first 4 in their lifetime before they finally went out of business in 2009. And like most video game developers at the turn of the millennium, it was just a combination of not great business practices and overextending themselves and not making great games anymore. So they also made the game Rampage, which is a game we will inevitably play on Sports Saturday and Sucker Punch Sunday. And I will admit, it is a lot easier now playing games like this with my new mic setup. I got a new microphone set up last week, where I now have a nice, big, steady condenser mic. I got an Audio-Technica AT2020, which I'm really liking so far. I think it's making the sound quality a lot better. Now, if I remember it right, if you manage to get the paper delivered to the right spot, even if you cause vandalism damage to that house, I don't think they quit. I don't think they cancel their subscriptions. But mainly, you want to get to the point where you are just by these fences. You want to really keep in mind where you're at proximity-wise to when you let go of the paper. So you get right by the fence, and you can let it go, and then you get right by the post, and you can let it go. If you can get it in the mailbox, you get bonus points for accuracy. But I'm on a pretty good clip here. Don't get hit by the dudes on the chopper. Then back to the training course. And I hit the cone. There were cones! So we have one canceled subscription. So we lost the third, or the second house we ran into. I think it's because I busted out one of their windows. But Paperboy, when it came out, was released on multiple systems. I mean, it came out on the Apple. It came out on different home computers at the time. Because it's not a hard game as far as programming went. You know, this isn't a super massive game in terms of memory usage and graphic capability and things like that. You know, they could make it as such where if you didn't need to utilize that much processing power, hit death in the nuts again, bust out a window, it's fine, you weren't a subscriber anyway. What, skateboarder? And I like to stick to the sidewalk because you just don't have to worry so much about getting hit by cars. And I think that's more or less a part of having the childhood I did where I was hit by many a car. My sister used to tell me that when I was lucky, I was the luckiest SOB she ever knew. When I was unlucky, oh, I whiffed on that one. She knew she was going to get a phone call saying I'd been hit by a car that day. And where I lived in Oregon, I used to have to walk to school because I'm of the economically wonderful class of kids who had parents who did not afford anything. And as a result of that, I didn't get my first car as I hit the fence until I was in my mid to late 20s. So if I wanted to get anywhere, especially when I was in high school, I had to walk or I had to take my bike. And where I lived in the Portland suburbs, I would usually have to walk over one of the freeways to get to school. Well, people love to come off that freeway on the off and on ramps, both, with the understanding that traffic lights were more kind of guidelines than actual rules. Down, boy. And where I lived particularly, I was within eyesight. Got that one. Ooh, I'm going to lose that one because I busted out his window. I grew up within not even a half a mile of Nike World Headquarters in Oregon. And I'm not saying that to be braggadocious, it just happened to be where we ended up. And one day I was walking to school and I was coming over the overpass and 99... I hit the back of that push cart. Or hit the kid on the big wheel. But 99% of the time... Whew, barely got that one. Avoid the tornado. Thank you. If a car was bombing up the on-ramp or the off-ramp, I would do my best to get out of the way because getting hit by a car, not fun. You know, kids are young and pliable and like 60% rubber, but still, that hurts. But one day, I'm sitting there on my bike, going over the on-ramp, and up comes this big, huge red Humvee with Nike swooshes and iconography all over it. And who was driving it but the CEO of Nike, Phil Knight. And like I told my sister later, if there was ever a time I was thinking I was going to take one for the team, that would have been it. I mean, granted, a Humvee versus a kid on a 10-speed, that wouldn't have ended well for me. But the write-off probably would have been good for my surrogate family and everybody who gave a damn about my particular demise, of whom there was not a great many, I will also admit to that. Oh, I lost that one, and I hit the dog. So I'm not even sure which day I'm at. I think I'm at Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, shut up, car. I saw you. I will say the worst accident I ever had on my bike had to do with me going from the street to the sidewalk. So you would think I'd be better as far as navigating my way through all this stuff. But I was on my way home, middle of summer, 90 degrees. And again, I was down across from the Nike World Campus. And where it's located is right next to a hill. And I was going down and I was on my 10-speed and I was flying because I was 13, 14 years old and I love to go fast because, again, I didn't have a car because at 14 you can't drive anyway. But going down the hill, I went from the street and got onto the sidewalk and not realizing that I was going way too fast and hit the little inset to be able to get onto the sidewalk and jumped the bike, went flying over the handlebars, came down on the side of my head and my shoulder on the concrete, and I wasn't wearing a helmet. How I didn't break my neck is one thing. How I didn't end up a vegetable is something else. Depending on who you ask, the residual brain damage that I may have incurred from that, it's debatable depending on, again, who you talk to. But getting up, not only realizing I had a serious concussion, but I also got up and realized that I had broken my collarbone as I run right into the light post again. Oh, and I get run over by the RC car, adding insult to injury. And what I will never forget about that was, one, the pain was, get taken out. The pain was so intense that I ended up passing out on the concrete. Which, again, was like sitting on passing out on a griddle with how hot it was. And when I came to, this Good Samaritan woman realized I was there bleeding and lying on the ground. And I don't know if you know who the comedian Bill Engvall is. His whole shtick is, you say something stupid and go, yeah, here's your sign. Well, she comes running up to me and she goes, oh my God, did you have an accident? And the first thing I wanted to say to her was, nope, I figured this is just the perfect place to get a suntan. Here's your sign. So let's try this one more time, because I want to see if I can actually pull this off. The funny thing about Paperboy is, for as simple and as underwhelming as the premise seemed, this game sold really, really well and proved to be really, really popular, especially in Japan. It was one of the top 10 selling games of 1985-86. And it actually spawned a sequel, Paperboy 2, which they ended up putting onto the Super Nintendo. And as I've said with many other games that I have featured on this channel in the last couple of months, oftentimes the perceived simplicity of it belies the complexity of it. I mean, yeah, you're a kid on a bike. All you gotta do is get papers to the people who are paying you to get them to them. You would think that would be pretty simple. It's anything but. Oh, I didn't hit the RC car again. Missed that one. Missed that one. And really, once you start losing subscribers, it's really hard, or can be really hard, to stem the tide of that. Oh, I'm gonna whiff because I'm gonna hit the moat. But this game has proven to be so popular that in recent years, it's been re-released on the iPod, or on the iPhone and the iPod Touch, back when the iPod Touch was still a thing. I wonder, and by all means, if you know if it's available, I don't have one. But I do wonder if this is a game that would be available on the iPad. Because it seems like it'd be a perfect game for it. But they also had reissued it on the Nintendo 64. It was available on the Xbox. It's a game that kind of almost necessitates reinvention because, again, it's not that complicated. Ah, I was waiting for that to turn and it didn't. Stupid loose tire. Bust out that one. Don't get hit by the tornado, please. I always hated having to outrun the tornado. And the worst thing is that when you are trying to outrun the tornado and then you see death ahead of you. Because death will try and make sure it gets in your way as much as possible. Now, you keep seeing me take this route through the obstacle course. And it just tends to be the easier route that you can go. I mean, I've gone other ways. But this one always just tends to be the fastest and the easiest for me. Now, Paperboy 2 came out in 1991, and then when they started releasing classic arcade ports onto 5th and 6th gen systems, they did Paperboy in the original arcade version on the Atari Greatest Hits Collection 2 for the PlayStation in 1998. And I guess Midway had plans to do a new version of Paperboy for the PlayStation. But obviously, as I said, they were starting to get into heavy financial trouble. And then when they ultimately went bankrupt and collapsed in 2009, that utterly defeated the purpose. Now, if there's a trick I've found in this game, it's that... Whoa! I like to go nice and fast through it, so I really kind of jam the up... Ow, once I get clipped by the skateboarder again, you jerk. So I like to jam the up button, because I like to get through the course as fast as I can. And even though, like I said, there's no time limit, you can take as long as you want. Yeah, there was no way I was going to get through that needle. Not with the RC car and the kid on the big wheel. But the farther along the game you go, the more you start to understand the need for the brakes. And I love that you get that tire screech, because I remember as a kid, on my BMX bike, before I had my 10-speed that had, obviously, handlebar brakes. Oh, I got clipped by the guy on the cruiser. Now, is this going to count, or am I going to be able to make it through? Because I got through the entire street. I just didn't make it to the training course. So I got a resubscriber, so I had a perfect run there, and I do make it to Thursday. Okay. Oh, and first thing I do is I lose me another one. Oh, and I got hit by the tornado. But that, guys, is Paperboy for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Like I said, it's a game that you can play in a half an hour, really. You know, I played 3 games of it in 30 minutes. I got more than halfway through each time. And if you really get good at it and you understand how to navigate each day and keep your subscriptions decent, you can beat it in the better part of an hour. And because of that, I mean, it's a game that doesn't have a huge amount of replayability nowadays, but it is one that you can, if you find yourself getting into it, you'll keep playing it for the better part of an hour or two just to make sure that you can get all the subscribers, or you can make it through a full week. There's a lot of different variations that make it an enjoyable game. So if you have like this, best way you can show that is to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Remember, we have Sports Saturday and Sucker Punch Sunday coming up this weekend. We also have WTF Wednesday coming up in the middle of the week, where we examine games that on paper seem like a good idea, but in execution turn out to be anything but. Also, follow us on Twitter at RetroCade. Help us hit our goal if you can of 100 subscribers as soon as possible. That way we can unload YouTube's customization algorithm. And if there's any game you'd like to see us feature from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation, the Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, SNK, Neo Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below. As always, my name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Monday with you, and I will talk to you again on Wednesday. Bye!